Hi everybody, it's demo night again. Tonight we're going to make some homemade burger buns. You can see I made a batch earlier today and they are beautiful, really quick and easy to make, which seems to be my tagline for everything that I cook. Quick and easy. And we're also going to be making black bean burgers, so we'll get those started in just a sec. Next week we have Alex Obregon and salsa hot sauce. We're going to be making a shrimp ceviche. The week after that, Karen and I will be making amaretti and coffee. And then fish cakes with Maine Coast Fishermen's Association. That's going to be awesome too. And then starting in October, on the Saturday the 2nd, we'll have Jen Bouchard, who is an author. She's written a book about called First Course. Takes place in Cape Elizabeth. And it's about families, relationships, and second chances. Thank you, Heather. Second chances. We'll have Mockingbird Bookstore here. Terry will be selling the books, and Jen will be signing books. The weekend after that, on the 9th of October, is Autumn Fest here in Bath. Lots of stuff going on downtown. We'll also be having a big Le Creuset sale. So if you've been wanting some Le Creuset, come on October 9th, Saturday, October 9th, and see us for that. So let's get started. So we're going to start the burger buns. They start with 2 tablespoons of yeast. And I'm a little low, but close enough. We'll call it good. So the yeast likes to eat sugar. So we'll put in our quarter of a cup of sugar, and then I have some hot water here. This is 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons. And we're going to pour that in here. And I'm just going to whisk it up. And then I'm going to cover it with a cloth that helps to keep the heat in. And that's going to get all fizzy and good in just a sec. While that is doing its thing, I am going to start some veggies, and I always turn on the wrong one because it's opposite of my house stove, so hopefully I have the right one on. So I've got 3/4 of a cup of peppers. You can use any color pepper, or leave the peppers out if you don't like them. One of the beautiful things about this type of recipe is you can put in whatever you like. If you don't like onion, don't put in onion. If you prefer green peppers, put in green peppers. I like the red because it adds some nice color. And then we have garlic, in my favorite garlic twist. And we'll put that in. And we're just going to soften the vegetables here. Brings out their flavor, and because we're going to just be sauteing or grilling the burgers when we're done with them, they're not going to cook a whole lot, so we want to make sure the onions and peppers and garlic are already cooked a little bit. So we'll turn that up just a little. And this has 2 tablespoons of oil, 1 tablespoon of oil, some oil, 1 tablespoon of olive oil. And we don't need to brown this, we just want to really soften the vegetables. Like I said, when the onions become a little bit translucent, then it's good to go. And it's going to be just a couple of minutes. So I've got that on between low and medium low. On an electric stove, I'd probably do medium low. And then you just want to keep an eye on it. Some nice big chunks of garlic here. Probably want to try to break up that garlic unless you really like garlic like me, in which case I would not be upset to have that big piece in a bite. Okay, so we'll let that sizzle away nicely, and then we're just going to check and see how we're doing here. So I would probably leave this another 2 minutes or so if we weren't doing a demo. When I made the batch earlier today, this was like, it was just beautiful. But the yeast is doing its thing there. It's eating the sugar, and it's getting ready to rise. So we're going to add our flour, and we're going to do 3 cups of flour. The amount of flour that you're going to use is going to change a little bit depending on the humidity, how dry your house is, that kind of thing. Also the way you measure, because we're measuring, not weighing. Earlier today, I ended up adding more than half a cup extra to what I have going on here. I have 1 egg. It's at room temperature, so it's nice and warm. And that's going to help because you don't want to cool off your yeast. You want to let your yeast do its thing in the hot and room temperature. And this is 1/3 of a cup of oil. And I'm using olive oil because it's got the most flavor. And a teaspoon of salt. Double check. I've got yeast, water, sugar, oil, egg, salt, and flour. So we're good to go here. And again, you can see we're using our Smeg mixer, which I absolutely adore. I have a KitchenAid at home. KitchenAid are great. But this guy is really fun, and I just love the look. The retro look of it is really cool. And I'm just giving my veggies a little stir here. Very garlicky and delicious smelling. All right, and I'm going to turn that off because I think that that is close enough. And the dough, if you want to, I don't know if you can get in here, if it's light enough to see what's happening. The dough you can see is pretty sticky in there. The recipe calls for 3.5 cups. That's just 3 cups that I have in there so far. I'm going to open it up. And you can see it's really pretty gluey. And I think because it's so humid, I'm just going to go ahead and add another 1/4 cup and see what happens there. And please note that I have learned my lesson about turning it on too high and spraying flour all over the place. I just want you all to know that I am learning. It has, yes, and it has the slow start. If you're like me, it kind of goes, unless you like throw it on to 10 right away, then it's going to be too fast. But that's the other really nice thing about this Smeg is it does start out slow, so in case you're not quite as careful. So this is still pretty sticky. It's really sticky. So I'm going to add another 1/4 cup. I don't want to make it overly floury because then it becomes tough, and you want these to be kind of, see how it just went, you want these to be, you know, kind of fluffy and nice buns. And meanwhile, by the way, I have my oven on 425, so it's all preheated and ready to go. These will freeze nicely if you bake off a whole batch. The recipe says cut them into 8 to 12 pieces. These are, this is 8, and they're pretty good size. I think that's a nice size for a burger. You can make them bigger. You can just make 6 burgers out of the batch and make them bigger. I'm going to move this to the counter here and do this by hand. So you can make bigger burgers. You can make smaller burgers. If you want to do sliders, you can do them, make them pretty small. And yeah, you can see this is still really sticky. And that's with an extra 3/4 cup of flour in it. If I in fact measured right. Did I just put 2 cups in there? Heather says I put in 3. Anyway, oh well, this is actually really nice now that, what's that?
I can't really trust me.
You can't trust either of us. Heather just takes me at face value. If I say I did 3, she says I did 3.
Your ego.
Thank you. I need that. Okay. So this is actually really nice, and now that I'm kneading it by hand with a little bit of flour, I'm trying to keep most of the flour out to the edges because I don't want to add any more than I need. And it's a little sticky still, but it actually feels really good. So we're just going to knead this for a moment, and you can put a little flour on your hands if it gets sticky. It's another nice thing about using the silicone mat here is you really don't need as much flour. We have the Lekwe brand. We also have OXO. OXO is great because it has all the measurements there. If you're rolling out pies or if you need to measure, something square, it has the measurements along the side. All right, that feels really good to me. It feels elastic and soft. And as you know, I like to pat my dough. So we're going to cut this into 8 pieces. If you want them exact, you can weigh them. I'm not going to bother with that. That one's pretty small. But if you can just weigh out the dough if you want to. Now, this takes a little bit of practice, what I'm about to do. First, I take my piece of dough, and I'm going to just turn the sides in so that the seams are on the bottom. And you can see on the baked one, the seams at the bottom, so you have a nice smooth top on them. And then, you don't want any flour, because you want it to be a little bit sticky. But just, I'll do it slow-mo. I'm just kind of turning under with my thumb and keeping it round. This does take practice, so don't be upset if you don't get a perfect ball. I don't get perfect balls either, but it does take some practice to get a nice round bun. And as you can see, looking at the ones we cooked earlier, they don't stay round. They kind of do their own thing and make their own shapes, but that's the fun of doing homemade. If you want perfect, buy the store-bought ones. Now, before you bake these, if you want to, you can brush them with an egg wash and put sesame seeds or everything bagel mix or poppy seeds or anything that you want on the top. And egg wash is an egg with a little bit of water all whisked together, in case you didn't know that. So there's 5. And these may also split. We found that when we made the bigger ones, they split a little bit on the bottom. You could probably just take a sharp knife or a razor and just put like a little X on the top if you wanted to. They would blossom out if you do that, but it might keep them from splitting on the bottom if that matters to you. So sides folded in. And there we go. So I'm just going to flatten these just really gently to make them more bun-like. And we're going to let these rest for 10 minutes. And I'm just going to set the timer so they don't rise too much. If I can with my floury hands. There we go. And we're going to move on to the burgers. So the recipe says to blot some of the oil off the veggies. And the reason is because you don't want the burgers to be too wet. So you want to try to get some of the oil off. Oh, and I forgot to say, with black beans, you're going to open up your cans of black beans, rinse off the briny stuff that's on them, and then blot those with a paper towel, and then you're going to want to put them in the oven at a low heat just to get them really dry. The wetter your burgers are, the more likely they are to fall apart, so you want them fairly dry. So I'm going to put my veggies in here. So I know this sounds like kind of a production, but this is a pretty easy weeknight meal. And you can put stuff in the freezer if you have more than you need for your next time. Okay, then we have, so we're going to hold off on the beans, but we've got our veggies. We're going to put in 2 eggs. 1 and 2. Whoop. I have got in here, I've got cumin, chili powder, smoked paprika, and garlic powder. And you can put in anything that you like. You know, once you start making these, you can put in onion powder, you can put in cinnamon, I don't know, whatever you want in there. That's a nice thing about this recipe, that once you have the basic idea, you can do anything that you want. I've got some breadcrumbs that helps hold it together. And then I have Worcestershire sauce, and barbecue sauce. So you can use, instead of barbecue sauce, you could use mayonnaise, or you could use ketchup if you wanted. Barbecue just adds some flavor, but you want one of those things. Again, it's kind of a binder along with the egg and the breadcrumbs. And we'll do a little pepper. Very scientific. And we'll do a little pinch of salt. Very scientific. And then I'm going to put the top on. And we are going to just pulse this. And you just want to get it sort of mixed together. And then we're going to add the black beans. And we want to do that first because with the black beans, we're not going to mush them all completely up. We want to leave some bigger pieces. So we want to do that separately. And let's see how that looks. Oh, a little bit more. Hello, mixer. There we go. Yeah, that looks really good now. So I'm going to take that apart. And this is our burger mix. Easy as that. Let me just look at my recipe and make sure I didn't forget anything. You can also put feta cheese or some kind of cheese in it if you want to. I didn't bother. Yep, we've got it. So next, I'm going to put on my gloves just because it'll keep my hands a little bit cleaner. And I am going to form burgers that are about 1/3 of a cup. And you can do more than that. You can do less than that. Again, if you wanted to do sliders, you could do little ones. Be a fun little appetizer. So there's 1/3 of a cup, and I'm going to put them on a pan with some parchment because whatever I'm not cooking tonight, I'm going to put right into the freezer. I'll freeze them overnight. You can cover them with plastic if you want to. And then once they're frozen, what I do is I just cut the parchment and then stack them up with a piece of parchment in between. And that can just be flattened out a little. See, I like it with the red pepper in there because it adds some nice color and a little bit of sweetness. Red peppers are sweeter than green peppers, which are, by the way, in case you didn't know, the same pepper. It's just as they ripen, they turn red and then orange and then yellow. I think it's that order. Might be yellow and then orange and then red. Or you have the green ones, which are the less ripe ones, which is why they're not quite as sweet. Okay, and we are going to fry a couple up. So I'll leave that. And one more here. If it'll come out. Come on, buddy. There we go. And I'll put those aside. And we'll turn that on. There's still a little oil in here from when we did the veggies, so I'm not going to add any more oil. And these are going to just brown up really nicely to go on our burgers. And you can serve these with cheese. There are vegan options too. Vegan. If you didn't want the cheese in there, if you don't want the breadcrumbs, you can use some sweet potato, mashed up sweet potato. Again, that's just to help keep it together. So there you have it. We're going to have a couple of black bean burgers on our homemade burger buns tonight for supper. And those are going to brown up really beautifully. And we'll take a picture once they're done and on a bun. And I do want to mention that we have some great beers coming up we have the Oktoberfest for Oktoberfest. And then we also have, is it Czech? No, it's Bunker.
Yeah.
Oh, they're both Oktoberfest. Silly me. 2 Oktoberfest beers for October. They'll go great with the burgers. We got our burgers going. We're going to put our buns in the oven in just a sec. And I hope you'll try this at home because it's really fun, really easy, and something that the kids could help out with. And have a fabulous week, and we'll see you next time.